We got my guy, Grant Van Buren.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for pulling up on the podcast.
Absolutely.
It's been kind of long overdue, man. I honestly, when I was a kid, I used to go to Lamborghini motor cars all the time. I maybe not a kid, maybe I was a little bit older than a kid, but I'd always go to Lamborghini motor cars, and I used to see you there.
Yeah.
And I didn't even talk to you or anything. I was actually probably like intimidated to talk to you because I was like a kid. And over time, as Instagram became popular and stuff, I saw you on social media and started following you. And then I started reaching out to you. And it's been interesting seeing your journey, man.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah. I was that same young individual where, look, before I got the gig there, I probably visited 6 months prior. I took photos. I was kind of at my when you're younger and you want to be successful and, your peers, they're talking about vision boards and all this stuff. I was probably in that zone.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I had this like deep yearning to be a part of the industry because growing up as a kid, I loved those cars just as you did, and a lot of our people continue to do. And
so let's start from the top, man.
Yeah.
Let's start from the top. Like, where are you from originally? How did you what were some of your thoughts, visions, and dreams when you were a kid? And how did you end up in Atlanta? How did you get into the car business? Let's kick it off.
Yeah, so I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina,
Okay.
which Queen City. Born and raised there. Played ice hockey as a kid growing up, so I had a little involvement in sports. Grew up in a Corvette family.
Okay.
And so I was exposed to those at a very young age. I remember when I was 3 years old, I remember my dad had a red C4 Corvette. And then it was for my birthday or Christmas one year, he bought me a matching red Power Wheels Corvette.
Damn, that's sick.
And that's kind of what started it. And I remember, I was 3, maybe 4 years old, but I remember driving that thing around so much. We lived in a cul-de-sac in Greater Charlotte Metro. And the battery would wear down, but I wasn't done yet. So I would push the thing up my neighbor's steep driveway, get in it, and coast it down over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so that's what started my fascination with cars. And then Dad years later bought another Corvette.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until probably I always wanted to find my way into the business. I had a buddy of mine that got me a gig selling Toyotas.
Okay.
And that's kind of how it all started.
So your buddy got you a gig selling Toyotas.
Yeah.
And this was in Charlotte.
This was years later in Tennessee.
Oh, in Tennessee.
Yeah. So probably sophomore year, moved to Tennessee. And then by the time I was 18, 19 years old, I got a gig selling cell phones.
Where in Tennessee?
East Tennessee. So like Knoxville area, we'll call it.
Okay.
I had got a gig selling cell phones. So that was my first exposure to sales. He went and sold cars at Toyota and then got me a job there.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how it all began.
Dang.
Like in the industry, yeah.
So how old were you then?
19.
19.
Yeah.
So how'd you do?
I did really well, I think, for what I was equipped with, my mindset, my mentality at the time. But I look back and I go, well, you could have done more, and I could have. So it was definitely a promising beginning. So yeah, if anybody's thinking about getting in the industry, I think Toyota is a great brand to start with, by the way.
Yeah.
Honda, Toyota, any of those varieties. It could be, GM, Ford, Mazda, whatever low-hanging fruit in the automotive brands that you can pick from. Those are probably the best ones to start with. You're definitely not going to come out of college or, let's say you had a little sales gig selling cell phones and then go right to Lamborghini, right?
Right.
It's easy to think about that, but in actuality, it's like you've got to have a resume. You've got to show that you've been proven to take things to the next level. So, starting at Toyota, I was introduced, believe it or not, this was 2006, I want to say.
Okay.
And our training class was for like a week or 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And this was the first time I ever heard the name Grant Cardone.
Oh, okay.
So we went through, I think at the time it was like Cardone University or Grant Cardone or Cardone Method sales training. I did that. I scored like a 98 in the class. Nice. I had the highest score that's ever been recorded. You can fact check that. My people know who used to work at Toyota Knoxville, Rick Wilson, 98. You remember that? Well, the results didn't show up. I had bad habits. I was a young guy. I'm thinking at the time, this is '06. I thought, 40, 50 grand. Oh, man, I'm making a ton of money.
Per year?
Come on, man.
Oh,
you know what I mean? But here I was driving. I think I had a '99 Honda Civic Si. My payment was like $250 a month. I'm still living with my parents, but I got a gig selling cars, and I'm knocking down several grand a month. I'm like, hey, this is better than bagging groceries.
Dude, and back then, 40, 50 grand, and you're living at home. That's not that bad.
Yeah, think about it though. I literally worked at a grocery store bagging groceries in high school, and continued to do that for probably another 6 months after graduating.
Right.
Went to community college. Did about a half a semester.
Yeah,
basically dropped out. It just wasn't for me.
Here, bro.
I'm just like, why am I spending 2 to 4 years of my time spending all this money, spending all this time, only to pay back my student loans and then get a salary gig making 40 or 50
and learning from someone who you don't even want to be like.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not what I wanted to do. I would have rather went out and just made money like right away.
Yeah. So my buddy we did the pilot run, which everyone will see on our YouTube channel. His name is DeAndre Holton. He started off at Toyota as well.
Yeah.
But I actually started at a pre-owned luxury dealer here.
That's good.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say names and stuff anymore. It's a pretty big dealer in Duluth. Pre-owned luxury dealer.
Okay.
You probably
we'll leave it at that. Yeah.
You probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyways, that's where I started, man. Yeah. I didn't start at a manufacturer. Like I didn't start at a true manufacturer.
And I got kind of lucky. This buddy, his grandfather, I want to say, bought like a really pristine, like Lexus SC at like their pre-owned center, and they were going to close the deal. And I want to say the sales manager was like, well, what do we need to do to close it? And he was like, you give my grandson a job here and you can sell this car.
Oh,
so he like bartered the deal to get him
his son a job.
And then this was like the little pre-owned center down the street. So there was the big store, right?
Yeah.
He worked at the pre-owned center, did well.
Okay.
They moved him to the big store. And then that's when he called me and said, hey, do you want to start selling cars? I'm making a ton of money. And I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. But
wait. So the guy that was trying to get his son a job offered you another gig?
The grandfather of my buddy bought a Lexus at this pre-owned center.
Okay.
But he would only close under the condition that his grandson could get a job selling cars there.
Got it.
Then his grandson went to the big store, did really well, called me up and said, hey, you would be really good at this. And so I did that.
Got it.
Yeah. But never won any big contests. Mediocre sales performance.
Yeah.
Bad habits. Dude, I remember one time I rolled up to the Saturday morning meeting late, hung over like crazy. And I look back and I'm like, dude, you were destined to fail. There was no way you were going to be the number one guy there doing the things that you
destined
were
to fail at that store at that time.
At any store.
Yeah.
With
at any store?
With the young guy that I was. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because I would reach a certain point where I'm like, okay, that's good. I'll chill out for a little bit. I'll slack off for a little bit.
Yeah.
But then as you get older, you gain responsibilities, and these things drastically change, right? Your whole focal point of why you're there is completely different. So moving on from Toyota, it was the first sales gig I ever had. Actually got fired, believe it or not.
You were doing the cell phones. You got over to Toyota.
Yeah.
This is like your first true kind of sales gig?
Yeah, I worked there for about a year. Got fired. It was the tough.
Why'd you get fired?
Those things that I explained, just bad habits, being lazy. I could close a deal. I knew about the cars. I was excited about it, but I just didn't have the same work ethic that I've had for many years now. Yeah. So it was a learning lesson for me, and I still talk to the GM that fired me.
Yeah.
And he's great. And I think that was. It's almost like when you're growing up as a kid and you're disciplined, or let's say you get a spanking and you're like, as a kid, you're thinking, oh, I'll never treat my kids this way if I have any. And then, your parents, or especially your father, would be like, well, one day you'll thank me. And you go, I'll never thank you for this. And then you get older and you're like, hey, thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
You know what I mean? So it was like one of those lessons that I needed to have.
Yeah.
From the GM. And I later went on to, I worked for another Toyota store for a little bit. I really wasn't
A
into
different
it.
Toyota store?
Yep.
Okay.
And then I moved over to a Mazda store right down the street. So I kind of hopped around for like the first 5 years, just to be
Okay.
completely honest with you.
Yeah.
But then I kind of started honing my craft a little bit. I started to get like some repeats, some referrals, and I'm like, okay, I think I got something here.
Right.
And then later went to work for the same group, became the internet sales manager for a Hyundai store.
Okay.
And this was like in the beginning ages of internet sales managers. Like I had a big tube monitor, we had DSL connection,
Okay.
we had some crappy back end system. So I was like kind of one of the first internet sales managers that there were. And there were about
Like when the internet started popping off a bit.
yeah, I mean, it's still, you'd click, it would load, you'd go pour a coffee. Yeah.
Like AOL.
You'd go pour a coffee and then you'd wait to come back up, it's still loading, and then you'd chit chat for a little bit, and you come back and then finally the page is there, and then now you can work on your stuff, you know?
That's crazy. This is going to be an interesting conversation then, because you grew, and now with like social media and everything being so prominent, like you went through like where technology was kind of at a plateau, and then technology started hitting with the internet and all these different devices. You went through, like, I was too young when the internet came out, but you went through that process of the chart of technology where it's compounding, right? So as technology improved, it just went like that. And you went through that whole process in the car business.
Yeah, basically. And, you know, I had a couple like little small jobs here in between where I was like, oh, maybe the car business isn't for me. So, you know, I had a brief stint working in a gym. I took that knowledge that I learned and applied it to my own life now, obviously. But but you know, my passion was always for cars. So anyway, I'm at this internet sales management position at Hyundai.
And this is all still in Tennessee.
This is all still in Tennessee.
Okay.
And then I get a random phone call from a guy, and he was part owner of a BMW store in town.
Okay.
And he goes, "Hey, Grant, yeah, one of your buddies put you down as a reference on his application and resume. You got a couple minutes?" And I'm like, "Sure." And this was a buddy that I worked with at the Toyota store. And I guess the conversation just started flowing. And he goes, "By the way, what are you doing?" And I go, "Well, I'm internet sales manager here. They're about to make me BDC manager." And I was going to be over not only the Hyundai store, but I think it was GMC, Buick, and Mazda at the time.
Okay.
And he goes, "Well, what are you making?" And I think at the time I was doing like between like 60 and 80 or something like that. It wasn't like setting the world on fire, but for back then.
Yeah, which in today's day and age might be like 80 to 100, like that.
Or more, right? More, yeah. I mean, the top guys at the time were probably in the 100 to 150 maybe that had been in it for years.
Okay.
In that area.
They got the repeat business referrals and stuff like that.
Something to that effect. Now, there may be outliers where, you know, a California group, you've got a guy out there that's doing 50 units a month. Yeah. You know, he's got some fleet business. Maybe he's making 200 back then. But outside of that, I don't know that in just the mainstream automotive sales industry that anybody was really doing like 300, 400, 500.
Right.
Nonetheless, he goes, "How would you like to make $100,000 a year? Because you're not making that now." And I go, "Well, I would like that." He goes, "Well, your buddy wanted to apply at the BMW store, but I think he's a better fit for the Subaru store. I think you'd be great at the BMW store. You want to come meet me?"
He said you'd be great at the BMW store?
Yeah, so I'm getting called off of a referral on a resume on an application
to go to
just BMW to validate store. My buddy to get a job at BMW. And he goes, "Hey, I'm going to put your guy at Subaru, but I want you at BMW." And I did that for 2 years. And that was pretty good. You know, I was doing better, but I still hadn't reached my peak. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I did well enough with a couple clients. One in particular, who's a really great friend of mine now.
Mm-hmm. Even from all the way back then?
Yeah. Dang, oh yeah, dude. Yeah. I mean, this one guy came in, bought a BMW, and then I sold him like 4 BMWs after that.
Dude, we were just talking about that on my last podcast. Like, you just meet that one person, and it's cool to see some of these people's journeys, man. Like they might buy like a 3 Series, and then later on down the road, they're buying Lambos from you and stuff.
Well, and that's kind of the story. Like, not specifically, but you know, they bought a 335, I think, you know, for his family at the time, and he tried to hire me every single time to come work for the company that he worked for.
That happened so many times to me too.
And this was, call it like 08, 09, 2010,
Yeah.
things were not like wonderful,
Yeah.
right? Real estate sucked. The car business kind of sucked. I still did okay, but it kind of sucked then for the most part.
Right.
And I finally broke down and I was like, all right, I'll meet up with you. You know, we can have some drinks over dinner and I'll learn more. Well, I left the car business for 3 years. I worked for a Fortune 15 company at the time. Did really well at that. Had the highest business ad percentages in the company.
Okay.
I transferred down to Atlanta. They moved me into a pilot role.
Okay, so this was a franchise BMW store in Nashville, but that franchise
in
was opening
Knoxville.
up. Okay, so they were opening up a point in Georgia.
No. So they were in Knoxville. This guy that I sold five BMWs to that tried to hire
Oh,
me every time.
okay.
I finally agreed to meet with him about hiring me. Well, I took that job with this big
Got it.
corporation.
Okay, got it.
Transferred down here.
Okay,
My dad's been down here for a long time, so I'm like, okay, let's do that.
got it.
Brand new to Atlanta,
Okay.
so I was in like the North Point area
Okay.
and did really, really well. And I guess I triggered something in the system that said, okay, this guy is either doing something fraudulent or he really knows what he's doing.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
With selling cars?
No, I got back into the cell phone industry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So full disclaimer, I worked for Verizon Wireless.
Okay.
So I was a retail sales rep. I was probably doing like 80, 90 grand a year. Still
Yeah.
wasn't like wonderful, but you know, it was enough. This was probably 2013.
Right.
And I triggered something in the system where I had the highest business ad percentages. Basically, I don't want to say in the entire company, but it was peaked, man.
For
Like
Verizon.
you couldn't ignore it. And they said, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I'm just asking questions. Like,
Yeah.
who's the person behind the solution? Like, who needs the solution? What do they do? What do they own? Oh, you've got a company. Oh, you've got, let's say
The
it's
decision maker.
a lawn service. Yeah,
Mhm.
they're the decision maker. Okay, what are you guys using now? Oh, all your guys have like their own phones and stuff. Well, wouldn't it be better if like at least you had all your managers out there operating the crews if they had their own phone under a company account and they'd go,
Right.
oh yeah, how you guys doing invoices? Oh, well,
Right.
we're doing it in paper. Well, why are you doing it on paper? You can lose that. Handwriting, my penmanship's terrible. Sometimes you don't get all the information. So now I'm offering like, you know, tablet and iPad sales so they can do point of sale systems while they're out servicing clients.
Okay.
So they brought me into this pilot role. There was a big disconnect, and basically how it would work, and I won't get too much into this, but just so you can see the transition here and really why my mom got mad that I left that company, and she's not so mad anymore, obviously. But you know, they basically had a breakdown between the retail channel and the B2B channel. So how it would work is the retail sales rep at that specific store would say that they were under the rules you can only do like 5 lines of service if it was a company.
Okay.
Then you would submit the lead of however many lines of service that company needed to the B2B channel.
Okay.
Then it was crickets. So, you know, how it would work was the retail sales rep would identify the opportunity.
Okay.
Let's say, I'll just use an example. This landscaping company comes in, it's the decision maker. They have nothing on board. They're not doing any solutions. You know, they ask enough questions. Okay, it looks like they need 30 tablets for their crews because they have 30 trucks out on the road and they need to collect payment. All their managers, there's 30 managers. They need corporate lines, et cetera, et cetera. They'd submit that in totality to the B2B channel.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, Jose's landscaping company, opportunity 50 lines.
Okay.
6 months would go by, crickets, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
One of the workers would come in, broken iPhone, they'd go to get it replaced. That same rep would pull up the account. Now there's 100 lines on the account.
Got it.
And how it was supposed to work is when they submitted for 50 lines, if they close 50, then that retail sales rep will get 25 lines of activation, thus enhancing their commission. Well, this wasn't happening. So they came to me with this problem and wanted me to create a solution for it. So I worked as a liaison between the retail channel and the B2B channel.
Yeah, so just by building a relationship with the decision maker, you'd get in touch with them directly. You would kind of tap in and then just scale it out because once they figured out with one person that the solution worked well, they're like, okay, why don't we just grow this out?
Yeah, so I was responsible for not only that, I would set an appointment. We'd have weekly calls. Each major store in the metro Atlanta area. I mean, we're talking Camp Creek, Buckhead, Howell Mill, North Point, Perimeter, Potts, Like
Yeah.
all of these major locations, we'd have a meeting once a week, and we'd be on the call with the managers. Each store would provide their leads, the company name. So I would be in the stores once a week. I'd be at the
Yeah.
corporate office once a week. I'd be meeting with these businesses once a week, and then training with these folks in every store to help them gather more information so that the lead would be more quality, or better quality rather. And it was me and one other rep that did this. It was a great success. It went company wide, but I was kind of like mission accomplished. I mean, in fact, the final year, they probably don't want to hear this, but the numbers were still good, obviously. I mean, I was probably working 20 hours a week.
Okay. So then how'd you go from this back into cars?
Well, this is funny.
Okay.
So I've always been into cars, and I remember I didn't actually have the job yet, but they let me know basically, hey, we're going to have a lot of people apply, but you pretty much got it.
Okay.
And
For
so
a car gig.
no, for this gig,
Okay.
for the B2B gig. And so that came with a car allowance. So even before I had the job, I went and got a car based on that allowance that I was supposed to. So I bought a brand new Mercedes at the time.
And it was specifically a car allowance.
Yeah, don't do this, okay? But luckily I was right. And then I slowly started modifying the car. I put bigger wheels on it, exhaust.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Mercedes C-Class, which is not like great, but
Yeah.
2013, first new car I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was pretty decent, right?
Yeah.
And I made it cool, I guess, for what it was. And I'd start going to car shows, and I'd start meeting people. And I met a really good friend of mine now, obviously. And he had a Lamborghini Aventador, and I was telling him how I was in the car business, working for BMW and all these other stores, and he goes, "Well, why don't you want to get back in the car business?" I was like, "Well, I mean, I would, but I would only sell cars like what you have, like a Lamborghini." And he was like, "Oh, you want a job? I can get you a job. I know the GM and the GSM."
This was like the first time you met him? Or like over time,
probably
a little
first or
bit?
second time. I can't recall specifically,
Okay.
but we still talk on a daily basis. He's great. Love the guy. And so I went in. Yes, they interviewed me, but I was really interviewing them as well
Yeah.
because I wanted to know, okay, well, what's the opportunity here? What's your front end gross look like? What's your average back end gross look like? How many units do you guys do on a monthly basis?
I want to touch on that real quick too, because
Yeah,
when you first get started in the car business, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into in
don't.
terms of the compensation plans and stuff like that.
no,
But you go to your first one or two stores, maybe you get a good idea of how things work.
yeah,
Like you might be looking at like, okay, front end, back end gross, like what does that mean? And then as you're doing deals, you realize like, okay, this is what's affecting my commission here, here, and here. And then as you go to your next store and stuff like that, now you're like, okay, I have an understanding of how this comp plan works. I know how to work the comp plan. And
absolutely.
now you're going to the next step.
Absolutely. So when I heard the gross numbers, I already had some numbers in my mind that were like top of the top for when I worked at BMW. These numbers were a lot higher. And so it was
In terms of like gross?
yes.
Right. Because,
So it's very intriguing to me. So I ended up taking the gig. They gave me a shot there. And keep in mind, I've been to a couple car shows. I know a little bit about these cars. I mean, more than the average person, but I'm not trained on them per se.
were you the type of guy that would just be in your downtime watching? Was YouTube popping off back then?
1,000%. I'm trying to just learn
Car driver.
everything.
Yeah.
And I learned from one of the best too, Ed Bolian. Taught me everything that I know about Lamborghini, some that I know about McLaren, and then the management staff there too. I mean, great insight, the nuances of every car, especially like the pre-owned stuff, what to look out for. And so that made me a valuable asset there, and I did really well right out of the gate. And so shortly after, just being in sales at the Lamborghini, McLaren, Aston Martin, Lotus, Rolls-Royce,
Here in
Koenigsegg
Atlanta.
now, it taught me everything. But shortly after, I ended up getting the consignment management position.
Okay.
So I was consigning cars there, and then
Interesting. I didn't know that.
and then I got the McLaren brand manager position there. So I was
Yeah.
doing literally everything there when you think about it, because I've worked in internet sales management. I've been just a regular salesperson. Now I'm a brand manager, which also includes working internet leads. Now I'm a consignment manager. So even if a sales rep comes up to me, hey, I got a client consigning a car, I'm the one that's sitting down with them. I'm the one that's discussing what the net to them needs to be.
Right.
I'm the one that's helping sign the contract, communicating to them about potential leads that we have, and and finally closing the deal. And if I'm out and let's say somebody else closes the deal, I would still get a little cut of that. And I'm like, okay, well, this is good. I'm getting
Mm.
some residual. I mean, I'm still putting forth effort, but even if I'm not involved,
You're still getting a little
I'm still
piece.
getting something. So I'm like, this is something great here. And when I first took the gig, my mom thought I was crazy because I had,
Yeah.
I was making over 100 at the time, which back then was good,
Yeah.
probably 2013, 2014
At Verizon.
at Verizon.
Yeah.
And I was on pace to do quite a bit more than that. And when I
Let me
took,
back up real quick.
yeah,
So, just for those that don't know exactly what consignment is basically where a client they don't they're not necessarily in a rush,
right,
but they can bring their car into a dealership and leverage that dealership's credibility, their finance department,
yeah,
leverage that car gets brought in almost as like a piece of that dealership's inventory, except you're not you're not going to get wholesale value on the car. You'll get a little bit more than wholesale,
yeah, right,
but a little bit less than retail
right.
because obviously the dealership is going to handle the entire sales
Yeah,
process.
and then the customer is hands off. They've got a team of guys that are working to sell it at a franchise store. All those things are great.
Yep.
Um, and
So your mom was saying like,
yeah.
I don't want you to leave Verizon. What are
Oh,
you
it
doing?
was a much different conversation.
Oh, I
She goes, oh my God, are you crazy? You're
bet.
leaving your good job, your 401k. She remembers this, and I go, Mom, I just got to do it. I'm just trying to follow my dreams here.
There you go.
And I don't know that she said something to the effect of, "Oh, you're going to regret this," but it was that type of tone.
That was that vibe. Yeah.
Well, a year later, she was not. She was very happy.
Nice.
Son's doing better than he's ever done, and then now I had a redefined purpose in life.
Okay.
And a couple years in, some of you guys may know this, but my wife, she ended up getting pregnant, which was fantastic. Ran into some complications. Ended up becoming paralyzed from her thoracic T4 level,
Hmm.
and as a result, has been paraplegic since 2017. And that kind of was like a hard pause for us.
And this
So,
was all still while you were at Lamborghini.
well, I would say I was the McLaren brand manager, so Motor Cars of
Gotcha.
Atlanta,
Motor
yeah,
cars.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we had Lamborghini and Rolls and Aston. I sold all those, but
Yeah.
and so for 6 months it was touch and go. Like we
Okay.
were in all kinds of hospitals, physical therapy, and then the birth of my son later. He was born 6 weeks early, so he was 6 weeks in the NICU,
Oh
and
wow.
so that was
So
really
wait, all this
tough.
stuff with your wife started happening during the pregnancy or like
That's right.
before that?
No, end of her first trimester. And
Wow.
so that was tough. Finally got back in. I was out for so long. They reassigned my McLaren brand management role to somebody else who was a
Okay.
marketing director before, and she's sweet, she's great. But when I came back in, then they finally gave it back over to me after a few months.
Okay.
Um, and then towards the end, I decided that I didn't want to be there any longer.
Okay.
Took a little break from that. Finally got back into the business. Worked for a small independent store.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was excited that I was back in the game. And then COVID happened. And next thing you know, I'm walking into Hennessy Porsche or the Porsche store rather, and I get a job there. And I was there for the last 3 years and 3 or 4 months, let's call it, up until
Yeah.
here recently, and now doing my own thing. So, in a nutshell, not much of a nutshell, but that's kind of been my progression.
The whole story. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's crazy, man. And I'm really trying to with this podcast, I really want to put myself in the shoes of the viewers, right? Maybe there's some people out there that want to get into the car business and they just want to get down to the nitty gritty, right? So they're sitting in their living room. Maybe they're not enjoying college. Maybe they have a passion for
yeah,
cars, or maybe they don't know what they want to do, right? And they're like, maybe cars would be interesting because I do kind of like cars. They're trying to just figure it out. What would you say based on everything that you went through, right? This is the kind of conversation that I had with DeAndre on my pilot podcast was, what if you could put it in a bow tie, right? Where you could aggregate all the information that you have and the experiences that you have, right? And someone wanted to get started in the car business. They're either really passionate about it or maybe they're like, I think I would really like this. If you could be like, hey, go do this is the first thing that you need to do, what would you say?
When you say this is the first thing that you would need to do, are you talking about before they actually make the decision to go in the car business?
They have made the decision that I desire to go into the car business or
Okay.
get into selling, get into sales, but more so car sales because I like cars.
Okay, that I can get behind. I would say if you have sort of a sales spirit,
Okay.
in a sense, where
Do you need to be extroverted? Is it okay if you're introverted?
you could be introverted.
Okay.
I myself am a little bit of an
A
introvert.
little bit of both.
I'm
Yeah.
a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So if I'm in the right setting, I'm an extrovert. But
Yeah.
when I'm not in that setting, I'm a total introvert. You
Right.
know what I mean? Because it's like I like to segment my time depending on what I'm doing. But what I would say is get in the community, especially if the goal is to get to the exotic level or let's say the premium or luxury level,
Mm-hmm.
BMW, Mercedes, Audi, that sort of thing. Get into the community if you're not already. Talk to we're out there, okay? Whether we're in a dealer, we're doing our own thing like I am now. Whatever the case may be, all of us guys, most of us that are car guys that are in the business are out there at events. We're at car shows,
Yeah.
you know, talk to those guys.
Yeah.
Get the good, get the bad,
You got dealers out there.
get
You
the
got.
ugly, get the transparency. Um, I could tell you all of those things, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And form your own opinion. And it also depends on what kind of current situation you're in. Look,
Right.
if you're out of college and you've got a gig and you're already making a buck 50, 200 grand a year, and there's upside in the next 5 years, you can make 300 to a half a million bucks. I wouldn't bother. But if you're one of these guys that maybe you've been to college, you got out, you didn't get the job you thought you were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you've got that sales
Which is
spirit.
happening a lot nowadays.
You're in the community. I mean, you've got to do something. And
Yeah.
so I think that it's worth a try
Mm-hmm.
more than anything. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and say my best month in the business, and this is no record or anything, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I've had a $50,000 month before.
Damn.
My first year in the car business, I didn't make 50 grand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The whole
Or
year.
maybe I did,
Yeah.
or right around there.
Right
But I
around
mean,
there.
when you can take 1 month and turn it into that, I mean, the sky's the limit. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
there are several guys in this business. I myself am not one of them because I didn't spend a long enough time in the actual car business, like working for a dealer with what I know now.
Yeah.
But there's several guys out there that make $500,000 to $1 million a year. It's
Yeah.
definitely possible in a
Oh yeah.
sales role.
No. Yeah.
So there's unlimited opportunity. But one thing that I will say is that, and I'm not trying to say this to be discouraging to anybody, but
Mm-hmm.
you will need to be there at 8 or 9 in the morning, and you will leave at 5 to 8, sometimes 9 at night. If a customer keeps you, you might work your off days.
Yep.
So
If you
there,
want to be at the top, you're working your off days, bro.
yeah, and so you have to be in a box during set hours, and probably a little bit before, probably a little bit after, and probably on the days that you're not scheduled to be there. You're doing events, so as a young guy that's not married yet with no kids, you get the best opportunity to really
100%.
succeed at this. If you're,
Wait, let me stop you there real quick. You said guys, right? Young bachelor guys, dude. Women that get in this business,
oh, they crush it.
dude, they freaking crush
The reason
it.
why they crush it is because they're for every, let's say, 10 people I have that love me that will only do business through me.
Yeah.
There's probably one person that maybe I haven't met, but if they meet me, they just don't like me, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of guards up mentality.
Right.
And so when a woman is greeting you walking through the door of a car dealership, your guard is immediately down. Okay, let's just face it. What's the threat?
Yeah.
So there's that angle. And if that gal is knowledgeable and is asking the right questions, then that person's mind is going, okay, yeah, I'm right about this.
Dude, I'm not even gonna lie to you, bro. I've worked with some women that aren't really even that knowledgeable, and they sell
They crush it.
a ton of cars. And I think it's just like you said, the guard is down, right?
Yeah.
I will say nowadays women are making there's a lot more women making the buying decision of purchasing a car. There's a lot more independent women out there that are doing their own thing, which is amazing. But I will say a majority of the time, and generally speaking, that the man is ultimately making the decision buying a car. So in that interaction with a woman salesperson, there's ego involved. There's
I would challenge that real quick.
what?
I would challenge the fact that the man is the one making the
Yeah, that's
decision
true.
to buy the car.
Because most of them are like,
Okay.
let me ask my wife. I got to go talk to my wife.
Yeah, if you don't need permission, let me know because you're a rarity out there.
Yeah, let me be. You need to be my client.
Well, and some of us do it a different way. We just ask for forgiveness, right? We just say, "Honey, here's what we have." We show up, and there it
Ask
is.
for forgiveness later. Yep.
Yeah. I would just say that you know, in order to be successful in this, you just have to genuinely love people and get
100%.
to get to know them beyond the transaction.
100%.
And that's how I've been able to develop relationships, is like getting to know that person for who they are outside of the transaction, not only when they're in the dealership, but when they're calling you for something on your off day. Pick up the phone for these guys that are tens, or gals that are tens, versus taking the call on your off day from a 1 or 2 they showed up 15 minutes before close. They're calling you on your off day. If you're selling them one car, guess what they're going to do in the next 2 or 3 cars? They're going to show up after close. They're going to call you on your off day. So over time, I think it's important to take those 1s and 2s and 3s and replace it with 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s.
Okay, so you're kind of rating a potential client or prospect on a scale of 1 to 10.
Absolutely. And for prospects out there looking to buy a car, we know these things. So
That's true.
So if you're going to keep us late, if you're going to just work us to death, if you're going to just try to just work the system for every penny and dollar, you're never going to gain any loyalty from the rep that you're working with.
That's so true. I was going to touch on that. I was going to say that
as much as you guys leave reviews for dealers,
we're reviewing you as clients.
All of us have talked, and we want a website where we can review you guys as clients. I'm not saying all of you guys, but look, find out who can take the best care of you, drop your guard, and let them take you through the process and show you that they care about what's in your best interest.
Yeah, look, let me touch on this real quick. This is a great point that you brought up. So a lot of people, like the average consumer, is coming in trying to get the best deal, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. Everybody wants the best deal.
Of course, yeah.
What you're sacrificing by nickel and diming a salesperson, getting us down to the last dime that we have in the deal, you got to remember that when you're buying a $100,000, $200,000, even a $50,000 car, you're looking at that big number, but you're not considering that we are working on a margin. We're not working on the, we're not profiting $100,000 when you buy a car. And a lot of people are disconnected with that idea. They just look at the number, they get disconnected with it. What you're sacrificing in terms of, because salesmen, and I'll say this too, because I do want to create that foundation. It shouldn't be about the commission or the cut that you make, right? Like, no matter what it is, we still want to put our absolute best foot forward.
Yeah.
But you have to look at it from our shoes in terms of being a salesman, right? We're working on 100% commission.
Yeah.
What you're sacrificing by nickel and diming us down to the last dollar is your experience through that sales
You're
process.
ruining your
on
own
a subconscious level.
You're ruining your own experience.
Not consciously.
And if you come off with that sort of mentality, your guy's going to know it. Your sales guy's going to know it, and he's not going to go and put in the same amount of work and effort as if it's a conversation and that you happen to be buying a car while you're having a conversation, right? And I get people asking me all the time, like, all right, is this the best deal? And I'll go, no, but it's a great deal.
Yeah.
Do we want to leave it at a great deal? Because the best deal comes with conditions.
No, yeah. And when you're a car salesman, you have that like used car salesman, or like, how do I explain it? Used car salesman perception with people. But the thing is
by the way, I've looked at people right in the face and I've told them, I'm not a salesperson.
Right.
I'm not.
No, 100%.
You can label me as one.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm here to identify what your needs are and provide
100%.
world-class service and provide you with the best solution, maybe something that you haven't thought about.
Exactly.
And so when I present to you, if I've done that and then you flip the script and now you're worried about the best deal, and I'm like, well, hold on a second. You were prepared to spend this and try to get me down $5 or $7 grand on that was $100,000.
Right.
but I showed you something that's a better value that's in the mid to high 80s, but now you want
Right.
$5,000 off of that? Like, what's going on here? You
Right.
know, you've killed it.
No,
And
I remember this one client that called me. I was just trying to schedule him an appointment because he called about a car, and he just started disrespecting me, saying, "Why are you talking to me like you're some doctor? Like I need to schedule you in, like you need to schedule me in." And he ended up hanging up the phone on me. But ultimately, what I'm saying is, just because we're selling you a car, first of all, if you come across the right salesman,
yeah,
they're not going to sell you a car.
they're
They're going
not.
to take a consultative approach to it.
Absolutely.
Number two,
Find out what your goals are first and foremost.
yeah, dude, the best clients that I've ever had will come in thinking that they want one car, but I'll put them in another car because I listen, I ask the right questions, and I get them in a car. Like I'll give you an example.
Well, and let me just change it off.
Yeah.
Guys, this is super important, okay? Because imagine that same person, you just gave them what they initially came in to ask for.
Yeah.
You didn't take the creative approach and put them in the car that you know that they need. Because guess what? When they come back a year later,
Yeah,
you could have put them in that wrong car, and now they're $20,000
Upside
upside down, negative equity. But you did them the justice by putting them in a more specific car based on what it was that they were looking for
100%.
at a better value. And when they come back in a year or two later, well, guess what? You can trade out of it easy because
Yeah.
Rohel took care of you. Grant
Yeah.
took care of you. That's the thing that you can't necessarily put in a textbook, but that's what the greats do in this business. Because, dude, I've seen it time and time again where a salesperson just worried about the commission slays somebody away.
Yep.
They come back in to try to trade it. They're $30,000-$40,000 hooked, and there's no second deal. Now they're going elsewhere.
Right. Don't think short term. Think long term with
Yeah.
every single one of your clients.
Yeah, there needs to be like a code word for like, hey, I'm a real one. Oh, you are? Okay, good. You know, like
Yeah, no,
because-
for real.
because look, there is a lot of sleaziness out there in the business, but guys like Rohel and myself, we are, like I said, I don't look at myself as a salesperson. I look at myself as somebody that genuinely wants to help in making the second biggest purchase that people normally make.
No, 100%.
You know?
No, and like for example, I had someone coming in with an X amount of budget, and they had a particular car and trim model in mind, right? But I was like, okay, for your budget, you're gonna get a base model version of this car. I don't think you need all that space. You're a single woman, like you don't need all that
Exactly.
space. Let me put you in a smaller car that's going to do all the things that you need, but you're getting it fully loaded, so your quality of life is going to be way more substantial. Yeah, so I put this person in a lesser car, but it had way more options. So the quality of life is just way better because you're getting a fully loaded version within your budget. It still ticks all the boxes for your needs.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be, but yeah, for that example, yes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be fully loaded. It could be something completely stripped out.
Yeah.
It could be a specific car that is hard to find that you go the extra mile. And trust me, when you go the extra mile and you got to hunt down a car, it better be a 7, 8, 9, or 10. Because a 1 and 2, I'm sorry. Can you find me this? Dude, we just met. Like, I'm not going to go through 6 hours of work for you to tell me, you know what? I thought about just waiting off for a little while. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna like really advocate, doing something like that.
Right.
But if putting somebody in the right car, I think, is paramount. Taking care of the customer is paramount, and then just making sure they have a wonderful experience. I mean, when you go to a Four Seasons or you go to a Ritz-Carlton, if you're going to get Holiday Inn accommodations and service, are you going to continue to go and stay there? No, you're not.
Right.
But when you go in these places, it's completely different, right?
Right.
The ambiance, the staff, the way that they address you, the way that your room is kept, it is a wraparound experience. So when you get to a certain level after, call it nearly 20 years in the business, you adopt this mindset of service and hospitality.
Yeah.
And the greats will tell you this. I know several, I won't drop any names, but the guys that have been in one industry or started in the car business and that are now doing their own thing, they've adopted this mindset because they live like their clients.
Right.
And so it was through all of that I started my own private automotive consulting firm, dealing with mainly exotics, supercars, luxury vehicles. I mean, all the big brands from Rolls to Lamborghini, McLaren, Porsche, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to bring that book with me for the most part and pick who I wanted to serve. And these
Right.
guys are still walking in to the Porsche store. They're still walking into the Ferrari store. They're still walking into the Lamborghini, McLaren store, or Aston Martin, or Rolls store. I'm either there with them or I'm consulting them,
Right.
because they'll run everything by me because they trust me by my word. If they say, "Hey, Grant, is this a good deal?" Or, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting one." I had a client reach out to me and he goes, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting a new Vantage and trading my Turbo S. What do you think?" And I go, "First of all, don't trade your Turbo S. It's going to kill your relationship with the store. Second of all, is this Aston Martin a brand new one?" "Yeah, it is." "They're giving me 20 off." I'm like,
Doesn't
"Brother, that car
matter.
that car with 1,000 miles is 80 off at
Yep.
minimum." So you can do it, but here's going to be the scenario a month from now that you're walking into.
100%.
Make your own decision. That's my approach.
100%.
You know?
And you'll have some of those guys that are like, I don't care. I got so much and we'll say it directly, but got so much disposable cash that they just want the newest one for whatever reason. And that brings up a good point, right? Because these are predominantly, when you get in the luxury and exotic car realm, these are individuals that have reached a certain level of success, lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs
Yep.
predominantly, and they're busy doing their own thing, focused on their own niche. And when and like he said, right, you kind of heard him touch on it a bit. He said that there are clients that I'm keen on, and he has his like own rating system, essentially 1 through 10, right, essentially. But you get those clients in and you want to cater to them. That
You
kind of
do.
goes back to the whole, it's an experience for us too, in
It
a
is.
sense, right?
Yeah, it is.
So we build a relationship with us, so we're always going to have your best interest in mind every
100%.
start of every single interaction. But we're also gauging how much you're valuing our expertise and experience and consultation and everything.
And not
too.
only that, our time outside of that.
Boom.
And the greatest, all my 10s, and you guys know this, you know who you are. They'll call me on what would used to be an off day. Like I had Thursdays off in the car business when I was, gainfully employed. And they might have called me and then hung up after a ring and texted me, "I'm so sorry, you're on your day off."
I forgot yours today. Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, "Dude, you can call me
anytime.
You're good."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'll take a call at 1:00 in the morning from many of my 10s, if not all of my 10s.
100%.
Because
100%.
we want to help them as much as they want to help us.
Yeah.
Like my best clients, they know they're not going to get raped on the deal. They know they're not, because I'm like, "Hey, you can do all of this stuff, but I would do some of this stuff," talking about like back-end products. And it depends on the store. So like, at the Porsche store, it's like, "Hey, if we get you a rare allocation, it's like, don't take it to get filmed somewhere else. Don't take it to get ceramic coated somewhere else. Don't, say yes to some things so that you can participate enough. So when the special car comes up, the guy that said, yes to 2 or 3 more things is getting it and you're not. Don't do that."
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Like, and the culture is different with each brand.
Yep.
So like the culture with Porsche, very similar to Ferrari. Ferrari's probably like,
I just said that on my last podcast.
Ferrari's probably the most critical. It's like you have to play their game. It's a game that you can probably never win. But if you want to continue to get these cars, you just got to say yes to everything. Porsche's probably a step down from that. Rover's probably a step down from that. Lambo's probably up there in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Aston Martin down below that. Rolls somewhat, right? So like all these brands, they have this hard to get nature to them. To a certain degree, and some are harder than others. But the harder the car is to get, the more you have to participate. Don't think you can walk into any of these stores and never have bought anything, and you want a GT3 or you want a 765 LT or you want an SVJ just because you got a bunch of money and you bought a bunch of other of these cars, brands, privately or from another store, just because you own 20 and you walk in there and you want to get whatever the latest Lamborghini, McLaren, Porsche is.
Yeah.
That gives you almost zero credibility, really.
Yeah.
It's what you've done for that franchise
and that store even. Yeah.
That's the game, right? And so I'm able to coach folks with that. I'm able to advise them with that. I'm able to look at builds, help them with builds, deem what's necessary, what's not necessary. Mm-hmm. and give the dealers just enough to where they can feel happy with the situation. So that way, when something comes up, whether it be a special car and your name's in the hat, or you need a favor in the future, you're not looked at as somebody that's just, a chooch,
Yeah, no,
for lack of
yeah.
better terminology.
I was gonna say that, basically, as a salesman, right? At the end of the day, bar none, we have to work both sides
And we
in
do.
terms of pleasing both sides,
Yeah.
right? Based on what your end goal is, if you're just coming in and telling me, okay, I want a GT3 or a GT3 RS, and that's all I want. I don't care about any new stuff, whatever. Then we're gonna consult with you and direct you accordingly based on what we feel like is going to get you to your end goal in relation to the store itself. Because you have to remember, you are not the only one that's coming in and asking for this car. There's hundreds of people
Hundreds.
coming in and asking for the same thing. So we
Hundreds.
have to act accordingly because at the end of the day, you most of the people that want these cars are businessmen or successful entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Put yourself in our shoe, and not our shoes, but the shoes of the dealer, right? That they are in business. They are going to maximize their profits as much as they can, and they're going to cater to the people that are willing to buy a car from us, trade it back into us, get the car serviced from us,
Correct.
and continue that relationship in your local. That's really the really high top priority there.
Yeah. And I've got a big guy that I would have loved to help. Okay. Most of you guys know who this person is. I mean, here's the roster, right? La Ferrari, Bugatti, Pure Sport, 918, Carrera GT. You name it, he's got it. And he's bought some Porsches, like kind of off-site or what have you. And I agree with him. Like, if I would have been the GM of the Porsche store I worked at, I would have slotted him right in on something halfway decent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's bigger powers at play than most people understand, and it's not the ability to communicate that or convey it to the customer that that's what you're working with. You can't really do that, but that's the reality. And so these guys that are highly successful, that maybe have dealt with every other brand, but it's having a little bit of a tough time accepting the fact that they need to generate some transactions before they get the big prize. Get creative. You guys have staff, you've got executives. Put together an executive. If your goal is to get a new GT3 RS and you've been told no 100 times and you don't want to pay $150,000 or $200,000 over whatever the market value is, get creative. Say, hey, look, I'll buy a half a dozen Cayennes from my executive staff. Okay, you're taking care of them. There's ROI. Okay,
and you can write it off.
You can write it off. Your employees can.
We're not tax consultants here, so ask your own CPA.
You can Section 179 them. You can do all these things, but it may unlock the car that you want at MSRP.
Yeah.
So just little clever things like this are good ways to appease your own personal automotive pleasure.
100%. 100%.
It's an art. It's less of a transaction. It's all about relationships, but the deal is an art.
I want to backtrack just a little bit in the sense of people that are looking to get into the car business. Just so, would you say that, okay, let's say their end goal was to get into the luxury, exotic, high-end, right? What would you say is the best place for them to start?
Well,
do they need to go get a sales gig at some retail store, build up that on their resume, or could they walk into XYZ dealership and get the ball rolling that way? What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely possible just to walk right in, but you need to have some sort of adjacent industry experience, whether it be in sales or automotive, in order to really bring something valuable to the table. So it's not impossible, but I would say it's, for the most part, unlikely. You definitely need to see, and I say good, bad, and ugly, because I met with some folks here recently at a branded store that I had to tell them no, and it was the hardest no I've ever had to tell them. I'm not going to mention the brand, but you can kind of guess. They're the most profitable brand of vehicle manufacturer on the planet, and it's one of these things where you do need to see the good, bad, and ugly. You need to go through these cycles of sales, whether it be 08, 09. Whether you were selling BMWs, Toyotas, or Lamborghinis, we all had a different experience. It wasn't the greatest thing, but we've also had the COVID days where literally it's a bidding war with every customer walking in.
Yep.
You're not even taking deposits on cars that were just traded, waiting to go through service and detail.
Right.
You're getting contracts done, and you call the person a week later to tell them that their car is ready, and we hope you like it when you take delivery.
Yeah.
They've seen it dirty and unserviced, but they're paying all the money for it because they want to be the first one to have the chance to buy it.
Right.
And for every one of those, I had to call 10 people back and say, hey, look, it's sold. So we've seen both, kind of, different scenarios with the economy and how that affects the business. And so I think you need to be able to speak to some of that, right? Because you're going to be sitting in front of somebody that, say, owns one of these exotic car stores. And if you can't speak from that level of granularity of experience, then, I mean, if I'm the hiring person, I'm going, well, where have you been and what have you been through, right?
Right.
Within this business. So you need to have some sort of track record of success, A, but B, you need to speak about some of the challenges along the road. So, but this is an interesting dynamic because the game is changing so much. You've got AI now. You've got stores that are probably hiring, and I'll say this, they're probably hiring a little bit less than adequate salespeople today.
Man, that is so true right now.
So if you're walking into one of these premier stores, just know who you're speaking with, and whatever your gut tells you is probably correct.
Let me say this, man. So I didn't have I didn't like you, for example, you're working with Verizon, you built some sales experience there and it parlayed in the car business a little bit, and you started at a Toyota dealer. My friend DeAndre that I interviewed on the podcast before this, he kind of did the same thing. Me personally, I went into a luxury pre-owned dealer, right? And I built the ground up. Like I said on the last podcast, they kind of put me behind the desk. They kind of showed me around, showed me where the keys are, all that. They showed me a lot. But they said, here's your desk, here's your computer. Here's your phone. When that phone rings, sell a car.
Yeah.
That was my experience. And I still sold 10, 12 cars. The way I got myself in the door is because, let me tell you this. Everybody knows your first impression is a lasting impression.
100%.
Don't come in looking like a scrub.
Yeah.
Clean up. If you're trying to sell at a luxury brand and that's your desire, clean up. Look good.
Yeah.
Look professional. Look with the times. Like if you walk in the dealership or you scoped it out a little bit, you see everybody's dressed a certain way, come in that way, because you got to think. One of the biggest things that your employer or potential employer is going to look at is, are you going to represent the brand that we're already representing the brand, and our goal is to represent the brand like this.
Yeah. Act like you belong there.
Yeah, because if you come in with that energy and you back it behind passion, ambition, and a determination that you want to sell for this brand, you will get the job.
You'll get it done.
I've had when I was working at an Audi dealer, I heard a story where the VP was at a restaurant and the server that was serving him was this girl. And she did such an amazing job. Her personality was pleasant. She carried herself well. She really took care of him in that experience.
Yep.
And he was like, why don't you come sell cars for me? She came and sold cars, and she was the most successful saleswoman at the dealership.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll go ahead. I'll piggyback off of that. I've got a similar situation. So we were doing an event. Kenny, I'm sorry. We were doing an event at Suit Supply for Aston Martin.
Yeah.
I had brought on a buddy of mine that did a short stint at the exotic car store here in Atlanta, selling Aston Martins. Worked with him at BMW. And so we did the event at Suit Supply. Okay. And he identified the GM of this store, Kenny Rodriguez. Mm-hmm. We were just doing an event there. Mm-hmm. And he joked and he goes, "You're going to be my replacement." And
Kenny said this.
And my buddy said this that worked for Motorcars at the time, to Kenny. And we kind of laughed it off, but it ended up being true. So I think it's 9 years later, he's still the Lamborghini brand manager here in Atlanta, and he's been successful. So you show enough panache, you show enough, charisma, good body language. You're able to dictate things well, have good inflection, know what it is that you're talking about. You can have, that was a rare instance where, sure, he served clients that probably pulled up in these cars, but he had no idea. And for the first 6 months in the exotic industry, if you're new to it, it is touch and go, brother. Let me tell
It
you.
is.
Oh man, I thought I was going to get fired 3 or 4 times, but he's
Yeah.
still there and he's doing great. And we still send each other business and love those guys there. I still love everybody at the Porsche store and got other relationships here in town. And so that leads me to my next thing. So I recently left gainful employment with the Porsche store, and now doing my own thing. I've built enough of a book, enough of business to where I can serve these clients, whether they're still buying from these stores or not. It's not going to hurt their wallet or the franchise stores. Okay, I'll still get taken care of no matter what. And that my whole mantra, it was something that I learned when I first started in this business at the Toyota store. And Grant Cardone was obviously the training platform, but there was references to some of these other guys. One in particular was Zig Ziglar, rest in peace. And this statement, I mean, if I can put it on my wall, and I probably will, in my facility with what we're doing in medical device, I'll get into more of that later, or in my house. And the quote goes, if you help enough people get what they want, then you'll get what you want. And 100%. I love that because it takes the focus and eyes off of the commission, as you mentioned, 100%. Off of the money. If you give somebody a wonderful experience because you genuinely want them to have a wonderful experience and end up with the right solution, and they're thanking you from top to bottom the next day, they're the ones calling you back. You don't even have to follow up. They're calling you back the next day.
Sometimes they'll need something for service and they'll call you instead just because they trust you.
Well, yeah, well, that happens. But not only that, like when you have if you're in a dealership, day one sold follow-up call, they're calling you back. Grant, I just want to let you know, this is like the most, I bought 30, 40 cars, but I've never experienced anything like this. As long as you can deliver that sort of satisfaction and gain enough book, then you can do this on your own. So
it doesn't matter if you start at Hyundai, Ford, Toyota, Chevy, then you step into Audi or BMW or Mercedes and go beyond that. Does not matter.
Does not matter. So because of all of this relationship building and my focus on putting the client first above anything else, I've been able to step away from the business gainfully and start my own company. So now we've got
let's touch on that.
Yeah, so now we've got Van Brewer and Co. And Rohel is a little bit a part of that, I would say. So obviously big network, over 1,000 people that we're going to be serving, and now we can do it with a non-dealership approach. So I mean, most of these guys already know this, and they prefer to deal with me over just walking into a store blind. Even if they have a good relationship there, they trust my advice. So, if you're in business and you're just a little concerned about maybe a particular move or something that you're going to put out there, who are you going to call? You're going to call your attorney, right? Your attorney is going to advise you, well, I could do it, or you can do it, but I would do it under these conditions, or I would word it like this, right? You take that advice. We're no different. So if you don't want to mess up, you feel like you want to make a power play, maybe you got somebody who wants to pay over for your car in your neighborhood, let's think about this, and let's look through all the scenarios. Let's run a comprehensive scenario analysis of what the gain is versus what the loss is.
Yeah, and the whole game plan.
Yeah, and the whole game plan.
Dude, these car deals are kind of like a business plan.
They are. And
the whole strategy behind it.
Yeah, because you don't want to sell your Turbo S for 60 over when the store sold it to you for MSRP. Not give them a shot at it, and then burn your bridge when you want to go back to get a GT3 or GT3 RS. Come on, man.
If you just allow us, well, I won't say allow, because you need to build trust and relation, and that comes with, and respect, that comes with time, and respect is earned, right?
It is.
Once you've earned that with your potential guy in the car business and that person that's in your corner, dude, allow us to just take it from there, because like we just said, it's a business plan almost. And if you just allow us to kind of navigate it for you so that we're your car guy in your corner, and financially we are taking into account your situation and what your end goals are and what you're trying to do, allow us to just kind of take over from there. We can alleviate so much time and stress.
You'll have the best experience possible. We take time completely out of the equation. Okay, if you're knocking down 7-8 figures a year, do you really want to spend 2 hours or 5 hours in totality on an ordered car dealing with the day-to-day, dealing with issues.
And we have the relationships already.
Yeah, showed
We
up to
have
the
all
dealership,
the
doing all the
relationships.
paperwork. Just let us take that time out of the equation for you. Like,
Yeah.
I'll go pick up the car. I'll take it to service
Get
for
the
you.
paperwork for
I'll
you.
bring it back. I'm going to deliver the paperwork. And not only that, when you're done with it, if applicable, I can consign it. Not always the case.
No,
It
yeah.
may need to go back to the dealer to look out for your best interest. So,
But we can facilitate that too. If you need to trade in your car,
Exactly.
don't want to deal with the sales process, we'll get you top dollar on your trade-in value. We have the back-end information on what wholesale
or at least
is.
give you a second opinion, maybe on a trade number, something like that.
Yeah.
If a dealer is shortchanging you, okay, show me the number. I'll tell you if they're shortchanging you or not. You don't have to guess.
Exactly.
And we could have some outlets where we can get more money covered for it.
Yep.
But again, this all comes down to a case by case basis, because when you're dealing with high end cars, I'm friends with all these owners. The last thing I want to do is either disrespect them or upset them with a play that I've made that was an incorrect assessment of your best interest.
Right.
So I take all of these things into account. But we do a lot of other stuff too. We do all the products and everything. And here very shortly, you'll be seeing a little bit more about what is going to be actualized with Grant Van Brewer, with Van Brewer and Company, and as well as Rohale and another buddy of ours that we can't wait to share with you. So
yeah, we're looking forward to it,
Yeah.
man. There's a lot of stuff in the pipeline here. And you know, just for these newer guys too, I think that, look, I gave you the keys to the kingdom in the sense of come in there, carry yourself professionally, show that you have a desire. I was telling DeAndre on my last podcast that when I moved to Chicago, I worked at an pre-owned exotic dealer in California before this. I worked at that luxury pre-owned dealer here in Atlanta before that. And the guy that I was working for at the dealership in California for the pre-owned exotic store, he was like, "Hey, go to a manufacturer is going to teach you a good foundation. They got trainings and stuff like that. Go to a
that's great
manufacturer and
stuff.
do that." Yeah. And when I moved to Chicago, this was in lieu of a relationship that I was in, so that's why I ended up in Chicago.
Well, that's why I ended up in Atlanta.
Yeah. So,
but then I got to meet my wife after that, so it worked out
boom,
pretty good.
There you go. And she's an incredible woman, man.
Thanks, dude.
That's incredible.
Thanks, dude.
And so when I went to Chicago, I shot for the Audi store because my very first car was an Audi A4 1.8T Ultra Sport package, manual with Caribbean blue, black interior. And the real ones that know me know that I rocked that car till the wheels fell off.
Heck yeah. I had a couple Audis too. I had a S4,
Yeah, you did.
B9.
Yeah.
Had a B9.5 RS5 Sportback, which I think you have now. Well, coupe.
RS5 coupe.
Yeah. Sweet cars. Good overall.
Yeah. And then when I went to that Audi store in Chicago, right, the GSM, he told me, he's like, "Hey, would you want to start at our Honda store across the street?" And I flat out told him no.
Yeah.
I said no. I want to sell cars here.
Yeah.
And when I was sitting there in front of him telling him that, I had myself professional, bro.
Yeah.
I had myself clean cut. You know, I portrayed the image.
You know your self-worth.
Yeah, I knew my self-worth. I knew I was determined to sell these cars, and I got the job because of that.
Yeah.
And that was my first. I was making real money there for the first time, man, because that pre-owned exotic car dealer, I pushed and pushed and pushed, and I was super ambitious about just getting any position that I could, and I was kind of like an intern for the sales manager there.
Yeah.
So for the guys that are trying to get and women that are trying to get into the car business, you can potentially get into a Audi, BMW, or Mercedes store.
You can. I've seen multiple people, even at Porsche, where somebody came from a Ford store, or somebody came at a detail.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories like that.
Or, dare I say, a receptionist.
Yeah.
TBD. We'll see, right? But
at the Audi store I was at, there was she was a receptionist, and she got into sales.
Yeah, and that all is possible if you are good at identifying talent. I'm not going to comment on whether or not those are all, accurate assessments, but I think for the most part, with what I've seen in my experience, for the most part, they have been. There have been some that it's like, let's give this guy a shot. Maybe they just need to fill a desk, and then
they'll get the hang of it.
3 to 6 months later, they're out, right? And, or they do, or they do really well.
Either way.
They do really well.
No, 100%.
And this, me leaving kind of mainstream car business and doing my own private consulting firm, acquiring cars, doing consignment, securing rare allocations, sales, products, whether it be PPF, ceramic, tint, all of that's great. But what enabled me to take the transition from, working 50 hours a week at a store, showing up, and this is the end game, right? Nobody wants to be in this game forever. And the ones that do that. Okay. But when you see the old heads that have been in the game, they're still in the game, they're at a franchise store, they can put a big smile on, but man, I'm telling you, man, there's no better freedom than working for yourself. So
100%.
learn everything you can, get as high up the food chain as you can, automotively speaking, in this position. And it would be my advice. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but it would be my advice to cultivate as much genuine relationships as you can, know the product, learn it all, and then find a way to break the cycle. Work for yourself. I mean, that's ultimately, it's not for everybody. And I think there was a statistic out that said that 80% of the population are entrepreneurs, and like 1% of those actually are successful at doing it. And so, but again, going back to what enabled me to do this is for the last, 5 years since my wife became paraplegic. I mean, just imagine, I'm the McLaren brand manager. I'm selling carbon fiber, chassis supercars. Okay. Yeah. My wife becomes paraplegic while being pregnant. Yeah. Then I see her get a wheelchair, and I'm like,
I didn't even know that.
And I'm like, dude, this product sucks. If this is a sales presentation, it was awful. This is government issued. The process and the product suck. There's got to be a better way. So we went on to form what's called Reability.
Yeah.
And we make 3D printed and carbon fiber wheelchairs that don't look like.
My mind, dude.
Anytime I show somebody one of these chairs, they go, God, that's the coolest wheelchair I've ever seen. Where else have you heard that's the coolest wheelchair I've ever seen? That might be like saying, oh, that's the coolest public transportation bus I've ever seen.
When I first saw it, my first thought was like, dude, this is like the Lamborghini, like Bugatti of wheelchairs.
Well, it looks like that, but it's more of like kind of like BMW Audi pricing in a sense.
No, yeah.
So our main focus is value engineering. So how can we bring the best absolute product that doesn't look like any other product, that's lighter weight than any other product, at an affordable price point where insurance will cover it, and the person is completely liberated while they're in social settings and is able to move around better. That was our main goal, and we achieved that. So more about that later. That's all you're going to get for now. I say this and that. This has allowed me to still keep a foot in the car game.
Yeah.
And still serve the clients that have not only bought, dozens of cars from me individually over the years, but have also guided me along this process of starting my own medical device company. So that's the circle and kind of the community that I've been able to cultivate along with their help. And that's allowed me to be successful in both areas. So
for sure.
Just take care of your clients. Make sure whatever you recommend is in their best interest.
Right.
And again, it goes back to the Zig Ziglar saying, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want.
Yeah, no.
So,
and I didn't, I'm passionate about what he's doing too, because it just, I get the emotion, the foundation behind it. That's why, I tapped into that conversation. But let me ask you this as some kind of closing words, right?
Sure.
Let's say you got a 4-car garage, future 4-car garage, and let's just call it today's market, right? The cars that are available.
What if I've got a 4-car garage right now?
You do got a 4-car garage.
No, I got a 3.
That's you got 3. Okay. No, let's say you got a 4-car garage. What are your cars that you're choosing?
Okay, Rolls-Royce Cullinan.
Damn, right? Like that?
Yep. SUV is Rolls-Royce Cullinan, period.
Not a Urus?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, I think the Urus is a great car if you don't have a Rolls-Royce Cullinan.
Okay.
Or if you don't have a sports car.
Okay.
Because it kind of is a blend, right?
Right.
But I think SUV-wise, Urus is great. Or Urus. Sorry.
Urus, whatever.
I've always said Urus, but Urus is good. Gallardo, whatever you want to call it.
No, Gallardo. Yeah. Gallardo.
Rolls-Royce Cullinan. Yeah, Gallardo.
And you got to be like,
Gallardo. Rolls-Royce Cullinan, probably a black badge.
Yep. I like it.
I would do how reasonable are we going? Like under $1 million? We'll call it under $1 million
What, for the whole garage or per
per
car?
car, because that limits some choices. So you have to be selective.
Just go for it.
All right. So Rolls Royce Cullinan Black Badge.
Okay.
I would do probably a 765 LT McLaren.
Dude, that's so crazy that you said that, because like this past like week or two, I've just been so glued to the 765
Brother,
LT.
let me tell you something.
It's slept
You,
on.
you hear it all over. Oh, there are problems. They're catching on fire. Dude, if you
Wait. You were a McLaren brand manager, right? I want to touch on this for a second.
if you've never driven one, yeah, I'll finish the fleet and then you can touch on that. But if you've never driven one, go drive one and tell me it doesn't drive better than anything else. I haven't driven a 765, but all cars leading up to that.
I mean,
to
like a
that car,
720. Have you driven a
720S, 750S, 675 LT, 600 LT, Senna, P1, 12C.
You driven all those?
The whole fleet up until the launch of the 765.
Okay.
And then I left before that car ever showed up. But
Yeah.
I will drive one. So I do one of those because I love the proactive chassis control.
Dude, like just the
I love the carbon tub chassis. I love the aerodynamics, and that all goes to play a part. It's not all about weight and horsepower. It's about suspension. It's about steering dynamics, still hydraulic. It's about the chassis. I mean, carbon tub.
I know.
Last time I checked, and
nobody else with really a carbon
an
tub.
F8 or a 488 is not a carbon tub. Neither is a 911, but it makes a huge difference. You want to see the difference? Go up to McLaren Atlanta and go drive a carbon tub chassis
or
car.
any McLaren.
Even a 570. Go drive one and tell me how that compares.
And now they got the Artura. I don't know if they're doing those in carbon tub or not.
They're all carbon tub. All McLarens are carbon tub.
Yeah, so Artura is good to go too. Then.
Yeah, it's good to go. I think they still have some bugs they're trying to get sorted out. So maybe just...
Okay, so that's what I was going to bring up, right? Is like the technological aspect of McLaren. I don't know why they get that. That's the most complained about thing, is the technological issues about the car. I don't know why they can't just dial that one thing in and they'll be good to go.
Well, you know, McLarens are never done when they roll off the production line. They're done after about a year once you take delivery.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why I tell some of my clients that are looking at McLarens, I tell them, hey, buy one that's like 2 or 3 years old, that's kind of gone through some of the things.
Absolutely. It's exercised its warranty phase. Yeah. If you go and buy a 1412C Spider with 2,000 miles, you're asking for it. But if you go and buy a 2012 12C Coupe with 30,000 miles, that would normally turn somebody off. But from a reliability, from a reliability perspective, if it's a one owner or two owner car, it's always been serviced, it's probably the better car.
Right.
And I've seen this show up time and time again. So, Rolls-Royce Cullinan Black Badge, 765 LT. Third slot, I would probably do...
Wait, can we talk colors real quick? What's the color for the Cullinan, interior, exterior, 765 LT?
Cullinan, I'd probably do black, diamond black.
Okay.
And I would do some sort of wild interior. They've got a couple of varieties. You got Mandarin. You have I think it's Turquoise. I'm probably saying that incorrect. It's like the Tiffany blue. Yeah. Or the tailored purple. I just love purple.
I like that idea, bro, that you keep the outside subtle, but the interior is crazy. Because you live in the interior most of the time anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I would just do black. Plus, it's like, if you've seen one in white, it shows like all of its like not so pretty beauty marks. Because let's face it, yes, it's a Rolls SUV, but it's not the most like, it's not the most like trimmed and tailored sort of looking SUV. There are more athletic looking and more smooth and sleek SUVs, but it's a statement piece. So painting it black, it just leaves it kind of a blank canvas, and you can do it from there.
765.
765. I used to be a louder guy with colors and stuff. I love Napier Green. I love Papaya Spark. I love Volcano Red. I love all those colors. I love Fistral Blue is one of my favorites. That'd be tough to pass up. And I would just deal with the people saying, "Oh, let me get a picture of it."
What's Fistral Blue? Is it more
Fistral Blue? It's almost like a Miami or Mexico blue, but knowing McLaren, it's like a three-layer pearl. It's stunning.
With like some orange accents.
Yeah, if you look at the 720S that I sold Wheels Boutique out of Miami, Florida, this was years ago with the Anarchy wheels when they first launched those wheels. That car was it was perfect. Wasn't even a big sticker, but it was Fistral Blue with some nasty wheels and lowered, and it was just perfect.
Yeah.
So for color on that car, I would probably go a little bit more conservative. I would probably just do another black car and then just stealth PPF the whole thing.
And then inside you go crazy.
Inside, I'd go crazy again.
Okay. What's
Yeah.
your third car?
Third car, probably go Aventador SVJ.
Damn,
Yeah,
really?
I'd go SVJ, and I would get a color that most people would probably not select. So I would,
On the exterior?
yeah, I'd probably go like Bianco Canopus, which is the matte pearl white,
Okay.
and then I would look for something
Like
with
that.
like some red interior, just something simple. White over red always works.
Yeah.
I do a Roadster for sure.
Yeah.
The 765, I do a Spider as well, and it's not that I want to be top down. Look at me. But when that roof is off, you hear what's going on back there
Dude,
a hell of a lot more.
yes. And dude, this is what I don't understand about some people that even like the 812 super fast, right? And then there's the
That's a great
GTS.
car, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. There's the one that comes with the top off. You got, I mean, even the F8s and stuff like that. Dude, the only reason that people are so diehard true to a coupe is because they're like, oh, it has more structural rigidity.
Well, you don't have to deal with that with a carbon tub.
Well, not only that, but you're not taking that, like most people are not taking their cars to the track like that.
Yeah, but a
And
carbon.
if you do have a car that you're going to take to the track, then yeah, make that one a coupe or whatever.
Yeah, buy a 3RS Cup or whatever the hell they are. You know, a GT3 or whatever.
I don't think I'm going to take an SVJ to the track all the time.
Yeah, I would buy the SVJ with the comfort seats.
Okay.
I'd probably get the 765 with the center seats, or at least the P1 buckets.
Okay.
I would do the comfort seats, but
Mhm.
that's probably what I need anyway. But I don't know. I just want to be like hardwired into the car, because when you have a bucket seat and you got very little padding and it's just nailed to the chassis,
you just feel more raw.
all that energy transfers, the vibrations and everything. And then even if you don't want to put the top back on that 765,
put the window back.
put that window back, and you
Yeah.
hear all the wastegate actuation, the
turbos,
the recirc or blow off or what do you want to call it, valves, the exhaust, the turbos.
Yeah.
You're immersed. It's like you're driving
Emotionally.
you're driving the engine.
Yeah.
And if you drive a coupe, that kind of goes away unless you get a
Yeah.
roof scoop. But I still think the Spider's the way to go, especially when the roof's up. It doesn't look like a Spider, which is nice. So,
right.
Cullinan Black Badge,
Okay.
765 LT Spider,
SVJ.
SVJ Roadster,
Roadster.
at Persona Paint. And then for the last one, I'd have to do a sedan. And this would be one that I would probably lose like a ton of money on, but I wouldn't care because it's kind of like a purpose-built car. I'd probably, this is going to be very, very unpopular, by the way, but I'd probably do a Bentley Flying Spur.
Dude,
I would because it's got all
when
the tech.
we thought about when you said sedan, I was like, dude, Bentley Flying Spur is the most slept on car.
It's
the
slept,
new one.
It's slept on. You've already got the Rolls SUV in the garage. You don't need a Ghost. The S Class just doesn't quite do it. You need something a little bit more distinctive.
Well, I want to go as big as a Phantom.
Well, and these Flying Spurs now, I think just like the Continental GT, I want to say they use a Porsche PDK, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe they do use a torque converter automatic for the big sedan. I haven't done the research, but
yeah,
all the infotainment, all that, bro, it's Volkswagen AG.
Dude.
It's Audi, it's Porsche. Everything works now. If you look at the Continental GTs, and I know I'm using another Bentley for reference, like an 08, dude, it was about as poor as a Maserati Gran Turismo. I mean, the infotainment was so dated, so old, backup camera. So when they finally went to this new rotating display on the new GT.
Yeah, like literally flipped.
And I want to say, and listen, I'm not buying one tomorrow, so I haven't done all the research, but I want to say all that translates to the four-door car as well, I would think. And one of my best clients got one. And, I sold his 918 for him. I helped him purchase a SF90 Spider.
Nice.
All tailor-made, Tour de France
the one that
blue.
you sent me a picture of recently?
I don't think I took a picture of this car. Different one,
car,
but yeah.
car.
But he pulled up not too long ago when I was still at the Porsche store in his Flying Spur. I go, dude, this is sick.
Dude, it's so sick.
Because
the
you
new
still,
one is so sick.
Because if you still need to throw it through a curve, if you still need to put your foot down,
this edge to it.
if you want to have all the tech and some reliability for the most part, I think it probably gets the job done.
No, yeah.
So that's what my lineup will be. Cullinan Black Badge, 765 LT Spider, SVJ Roadster, and the Flying Spur. Probably some sort of whatever kind of cool edition. I think on the coupes, if I was going to do a GT coupe instead of the Flying Spur, I'd probably do a V8S just for reliability's sake. I mean,
on the Bentley?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a PDK transmission on that car. Bentley probably hates hearing about this. And then the 4-liter V8. Well, guess what that 4-liter V8 is found in? Panamera GTS, Panamera Turbo, Turbo GT, Lamborghini Urus,
Yeah.
RSQ8, RS7. Like these engines are in all these cars,
Yeah.
and so for that reason, that's why I'd pick that fleet.
That's awesome.
If I wanted to go full exotic, that's what I would do.
Like high end, high line.
Yeah.
No,
And that's no Koenigsegg, Yescos or Bugatti Chiron Super Sports or that's all under $1 million.
Yeah, because someone that's got a 4-car choice, they're probably not doing the hypercar stuff.
Yeah, and
those guys got like 20 cars.
Yeah, and I could dumb that 4-slot down a little bit if I wanted to, and go even lower. So if I didn't do the Cullinan, I would do probably a Bentayga V8S.
Okay.
I would do a Huracan Technica.
Mm-hmm.
I would do a 600 LT, and then I could do like an S580.
But with the Huracan and the 600 LT, do you think those are kind of like the Technica and the 600 LT, or two different things?
Oh, they're different.
Yeah, because I think the 600 LT is way more of a track weapon.
It definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
What was the fourth car you said?
Like an S580.
S580.
Yeah, just new S class of some variety.
Yeah, for sure. Man, well, this has been an incredible podcast.
Do you have
any final words for the viewers that are looking to get into the car business? Like one final last tip that you can leave them off with?
Yeah, I would just say, don't just follow your heart. I think that's important, but make a calculated decision on what it is that you want your life to look like for the next 5 years.
Right.
I think that's the important component.
Right.
Because anybody can do anything for a year and then not do it.
Yeah.
Like I've went to the gym for a year and then didn't work out for the next year, but what did it give me? Nothing. It was a net zero. I wasted a bunch of time. So don't waste your time doing on whatever your heart says that you want to do. Make a calculated, conscious decision of what you want your next 5 years to look like. And this is no bullshit 5-year plan. This is like literally think about the long-term plan. So if step 1 is getting the job in the exotic automotive industry, think about what you want your year 2 goal to be, your year 3 goal to be, your year 4 and your year 5 goal to be. Is it meeting people? Is it becoming a little bit of a name within the industry? Networking, like, cultivate all of that into a scenario before you say yes or no to just jumping into something.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Do it that way. Keep your heart strong on what it is that you want, but maybe you're not ready. Maybe you haven't thought about all of that. So just work towards that if you're not ready for it.
No, yeah, 100%.
But it can be incredibly rewarding. You can make a ton of money, but always keep the people that you serve, their best interests in mind before anything else. As long as you do that,
absolutely,
everything else will be fine.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And one last tip that I would just give is, like, it doesn't matter if you start at Toyota, Chevy, whatever. Obviously, I think try to get in try to get into the mid-level luxury if you can, because you go into the Toyota and Chevy stores to make the real money. You got to be pushing like 20, 30 cars a month.
Takes time.
No matter where you start, do everything that Grant just said. One thing that I would add to that is, with social media nowadays, get every single one of your clients to add you on Facebook, Instagram, whatever they use. Anything and everything that they use, get them to add you on that, and post content at least minimum once a week.
Minimum.
The reason why I say that is because you're staying at forefront of their mind, and they could be at dinner with their buddies that realize that they just got a new car, whatever it was that they bought from you.
They're going to pull it up.
They're going to hey, oh, this is my guy that got me this car. And boom, now you got like another deal right there. It could be 10 deals just from something
100%.
like that. So add everybody on your social media, create that social media.
And if you've got an exotic car that you're trying to trade for and you're unhappy with the desk's number, whether it be a Porsche, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce, Bentley, you name it, give one of us a call.
Yeah.
We'll beat that number.
Yep.
We'll put you in the right place. And then who knows? Maybe you'll come work for us one day or do your own thing.
100%. And if you're a client out there that's looking to, move one of your luxury or exotics, hit me up and we will, we'll handle the entire sales process. We'll get that car detailed and shot and everything, create all the high professional quality listings. and we'll move that car for you and handle the entire process.
And like you said, social media outreach, all that good stuff.
Social media, everything.
So vanbrewerandco.com if you want to look at my automotive consulting private firm, and then reability.com. That's our medical device company.
Medical device.
So check us out.
Check us out, man. Well, thanks again, man.
Yeah.
This has
Thank
been
you, brother.
Absolute pleasure. It's
Always.
been a long time
Anytime.
in the making.
Yeah.
And look forward to doing a few more, man. Maybe we can touch on a few points. But I appreciate you coming out, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Happy to be here.
Peace.
Take care, guys.